You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also visit our home on the web. Just go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the program's link. If you missed the live show, you can listen to the show's archives on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, and many more, including our home on Spreaker. When a disaster happens, are you ready? Do you have the supplies you need to keep you and your family safe and survive? The Zombie Outpost store in Wilmington, Ohio, at Cedar Creek Flea Market, stocks quality gear you need to be ready for the next emergency or even a camping trip. Visit zombieoutpoststore.com for location and hours. Check out our assortment of essentials you need when the next disaster happens. Go to zombieoutpoststore.com. Get 10% off at checkout when you mention Are You Ready Radio. Be ready and be prepared.
In this digital society, making connections is quickly becoming a lost art form. Yet, if you are a small business owner, building your network is the only way you can get ahead. Can these skills be learned? You bet they can. Read Nose to Nose Networking. No-nonsense, in-person networking tips from a master. Who's the master? Well, who better to teach networking and friend-building skills than a golden retriever? The author, Melanie Hope, takes the antics of Abigail and translates them into the human experience. Through Abby, you will learn how to set your intention, build a network, and get into and out of conversations with grace. If you love the Dog Abby segments on Counterculture-Wise Radio, you will love Nose to Nose Networking even more. Find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hard copy, Kindle, and Nook. Visit counterculturewise.com for direct links.
Greetings and salutations, Counterculture-Wise listeners. This is Maximilian von Riegelbieser inviting you and yours to listen to me and mine. Join me, my sisters Abby and Fritzy, and my weekly guests, my father Jim and Mumsy Melanie, for Counterculture-Wise.
Max, it's not your show!
And we're not your guests, Max. We're the hosts. You may want to rein it in a little bit, buddy.
Very well. Tune in every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific at counterculturewise.com for our amazing live variety show. You can even chat with us. If you ask me, though, it should be called Counterculture Max.
Counterculture Wise! Radio with heart and mind.
Got a spare tire around that waist? Is your muffin top over the top? Do you binge eat uncontrollably? We are the government and we are here to help you. Here at our free FEMA weight loss camp, we have numerous ways to help you shed those unsightly, unwanted pounds. FEMA, or Fatties Eating Mitigated, automatically has a communist-style weight loss czar that specializes in centralized weight loss planning and communal extended fasting programs to shed that fat away in no time. Skin and boned means extra toned is the motto. Just remember, there is no way you can do it on your own. We will forcefully assist you into compliance. Failure is not an option in this utopian wonderland. How fantastic. Typical workout regimes include digging ditches and restocking them with dirt, building railways and more. Get life skills while you get lean. How do you join? Simple. Recite the Constitution in a public commons or violate the Patriot Act that includes simple misdemeanors. It's really that easy to get your own fenced-in slice of Americana. Stop being a fatty. The state is your daddy.
If you like what you are listening to, we appreciate your support. A small contribution from you, the listeners, can continue to help bring you such content and help keep things going here, even if it's just $1 a month. Keep in mind, though, in the spirit of prepping, we believe in redundancy, so it's better to have more than one, but every little bit helps pay the bills. Go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the Support the Show link. You can make a one-time or monthly contribution in any dollar amount. And again, thank you for your support and listening. Are You Ready is an NP Media Group production and is the official broadcast of the Zombie Outpost in Wilmington, Ohio. The views and opinions expressed during this broadcast are those of the host and not that of the station, advertisers, or its affiliates. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You never know when an emergency is going to happen. Disaster can strike at any time. Whether stuck on the road, riding out a power outage, escaping a natural disaster, or surviving a doomsday apocalypse, what would you do? No matter the scale, whether 1 hour or 1 year, will you survive? You're about to hear what it takes to be prepared. Now ask yourself, are you ready? Have you ever heard the term prepper? What comes to mind? Some of you may think it's a crazy guy with a bomb shelter and an old army truck parked on the front lawn. Well, prepper simply is a person who is ready for almost any emergency, small or large. It's no different than on a rainy day taking an umbrella with you when you leave your home or putting a coat on when it's cold outside. So maybe you think you're prepared for a brief time in that environment. But what if a few minutes turn into a day or even a year? I'm your host, Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper, and I'm going to use my over 25 years of prepping and survival experience and knowledge in this program to help you and your family prepare to handle almost anything, from a small event, from a doomsday apocalypse. So get ready, because I'm prepared to enlighten you to seriously think, prepare, and answer the question, are you ready? And I want to hear anything you have to say about the subject, whatever you may have to offer. You see, it's important that we share our knowledge with each other, learn from each other, and help each other out. You see, the more prepared those around us are, the better your chances of survival will be when a disaster happens. Now, I'm sure everyone has heard the term zombies. Well, those are just those that are not prepared and come after whatever you have. Well, the call-in number is 513-815-6336 if you want to be a part of the show. Again, that's 513-815-6336. Also, check out our live chat room on Spreaker. That's Spreaker, Spreaker.com. Just go to the Are You Ready show, search it right there in the search bar. You can get there live through the website, nickpiercemedia.com. I post exclusive content on the home of Are You Ready on Facebook and on Instagram. Just go to Are You Ready Radio. You can interact with other members of the prepping community before, during, and after our broadcast. So share your knowledge. And again, if you want to call, the call-in number is 513-815-6336. And here we go. So, past couple weeks, as you can tell, I haven't been live on the air. Glad to be back. I had a big family camp out, and it's kind of the annual family camping trip that I host. I go down there for about a week. And I wanted to mostly talk about maybe just some camping tips and tricks and some hacks that I use. And this was fairly large. This is one of the largest ones I've had so far when it came to the number of people that show up. And it's kind of like it's great. It's more family shows up. Their kids. Everybody's getting a little older. They have more kids. The kids start having friends. And there's also, as the kids get older, they have, especially my niece and nephew, they have a boyfriend, girlfriend, and all that. And so there's a lot more people. More, each year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So I wanted to discuss kind of keeping the camp organized and some little tips and tricks and hacks that I use. But I was also thinking about, the extreme heat that we're having lately. So almost all over the world, not just in the U.S. I mean, you've been hearing stories on the news lately about the extreme temperatures and the heat warnings and the heat advisories and the fires and the drought and the extreme high temperatures in different areas of the country. And I wanted to kind of address that as well, kind of how to deal with that. And I figured I wanted to work it into maybe the tips and tricks that I have when it comes to the whole camping, or even just outdoor activities in general. Or what if you are in a survival situation? How do you stay hydrated? How do you recognize signs of we'll say, heat exhaustion, dehydration, heat stroke, and all that. So that's pretty much what I'm going to focus this episode around. And let's see. So, just some of the differences. How to avoid it, and some techniques that I have as far as not just the differences, but also spotting signs of it, treatment for it, and everything. And so here we go. I also have a great prepping kitchen tip that's really geared towards my little thing that I do camping, and prepping for pets, especially when it comes to camping with them, and of course some mistakes of the week. So here we are. So let's first address maybe the whole dehydration, heat exhaustion, heat stroke thing, kind of how to identify it, different symptoms, treating it, and all that. Let's get the heat thing, an understanding of that first, and then I'll get into some of how it applies to, we'll say, your camping or even just, spending a day on the lake or a river or even an amusement park. And then a survival situation beyond that. Now, before things get extreme and you get into heat stroke, before that, there's heat exhaustion. Before that, there's just simply dehydration. And the best way to avoid all three is to really keep yourself hydrated. Drink plenty of water and, stay kind of cool in the shade if you can. Avoid real strenuous activities in the sun if possible. And if you are very active, again, keep replenishing your fluids. You're going to need a lot of water. You're going to need a lot more water than you normally would if you're just hanging out, lounging next to the pool. So, how do you know if you're dehydrated? Well, a couple symptoms to look for is, first of all, the feeling thirsty. Okay? That means you really need more water. You also may have a dark yellow or very strong smelling urine. Sometimes it could be you may feel dizzy or lightheaded. You may feel tired. Your mouth, lips, and eyes may be dry. And you're also urinating less frequently. So you're probably only urinating maybe 1 or 2 times a day. You should be urinating a minimum of 4 times a day. And, if you're very well hydrated. So a simple remedy of that is just simply drink more fluids. If you find yourself coming down with some of these symptoms, just relax. Find a shady place. Try to stay as cool as you can. Maybe take a dip in the lake or a pool. Take a cold shower. Just anything to kind of cool your body down a little bit if the symptoms keep getting worse or don't go away. Now, when it comes to just rehydrating yourself, a lot of times people just run to the ice water and just start pounding back ice water. That doesn't necessarily help. Yeah, it may feel good. You may think that, you feel a lot cooler and all that, but your body is actually warming up more to warm that water up, to regulate it, and kind of digest it and take it in to the vital organs and your bloodstream and all that it needs to be in. So drinking ice cold water is not the best. You want to try to get something maybe room temperature or at least warm. Maybe just out of the faucet warm. You don't necessarily want it to be real cold because, like I said, your body's going to be working harder to heat up and warm that water up in order to process it in your body the way it needs to. Now, if you think that or that you're going to be outdoors for a long time, you're going to be very active, maybe you're going to be, extreme exercises, hiking, even just maybe going out to play ball or something for a long time, or you're going to be out on the lake or river or out in the ocean for a whole day or something. You want to start hydrating yourself ahead of time. So start drinking plenty of fluids maybe the day or night before. This way it starts working its way in your body, and continue drinking fluids throughout whatever activity that you're doing. And this way you have plenty of fluids in your body so that, the real cause of dehydration is you're exceeding more fluid, or you're losing more fluids than your body needs to function. And so you get it. And another thing that could lead to dehydration is, besides strenuous exercise, the weather and all that, is something as simple as illness, especially in older adults. They become dehydrated even during mild illnesses. Same thing with if you have bladder infection, stuff like that. Vomiting, diarrhea. And, that's another cause to dehydration, particularly in children now. So, and adults too. Anytime you're losing a great deal of fluids, You really have to replace them more and more. But yeah, it's also important to treat those minor illnesses that you may have in order to prevent you from continuing to be dehydrated. Well, once you become dehydrated, it leads to other things like heat exhaustion and then eventually heat stroke and all that. So make sure that maybe you have some anti-diarrheal medicine. Make sure that you have a way to treat whatever illnesses may come up in your medical kit, especially if you're in extreme weather or strenuously exercising, very active, maybe hiking or, riding on the lake, on the ocean, whatever. So, eliminating some of those other symptoms that may contribute to dehydrating yourself will also help avoid you from becoming dehydrated, along with drinking plenty of fluids. Now, let's look at heat exhaustion. Now, heat exhaustion is, a lot of times people may think that they get heat exhaustion because you're just dehydrated and you just need to drink more water. Yeah, drinking more water may help, and sometimes, the cause of dehydration and heat exhaustion, they do have related symptoms, but the two problems are not the same. Okay, dehydration and heat exhaustion are not the same, even though dehydration could lead to heat exhaustion. So there are really two types of heat exhaustion. One occurs when the body is depleted of fluids, dehydration, which can lead to symptoms such as weakness and headaches. Common things that they're, very, very common if you're just dehydrated that you may experience. The second type of heat exhaustion occurs when the body is depleted of salt because it is being excreted through the sweat. The symptoms of that type of heat exhaustion can cause nausea, muscle cramps, and dizziness. Okay? Now, if you don't treat heat exhaustion as quickly as you can, there is a chance it could develop into heat stroke, and that could cause permanent damage. And even heat stroke could be fatal. But heat exhaustion is dangerous, and it should be. It's not as dangerous as heat stroke, but you really need to take it seriously. So one of the symptoms of heat exhaustion is pretty much like dehydration, being thirsty. Now, just because you're thirsty doesn't mean you necessarily have heat exhaustion. However, it could be an indicator that you're beginning to develop it, especially if you find yourself increasingly thirsty regardless of how much water you drink. So this could be a sign that you're not just thirsty, but actually depleted of water. And at this stage, other symptoms of dehydration can emerge and cause problems to both your physical and mental health. Now, another symptom is fatigue. All your muscles and all your organs and everything in your body need water and plenty of fluids to function properly. So if you start to feel tired, again, it's almost like dehydration. You're going to start to feel lazy, tired. Your energy level is not where it was. Another symptom is a headache. So if you are having a headache, chances are that you probably didn't drink enough water. Headache is one of the most common symptoms of dehydration, though. But in the case of heat exhaustion, headaches can indicate that the body has some has depleted, a lot of its fluids, that the brain is struggling to function or struggling to function properly. So they can also, and that's how, like, the headache can also lead to the mental fatigue, I guess we could say. And then beyond that, with heat exhaustion, unconsciousness. This only occurs if you're experiencing, like, heat stroke normally, but water depletion and the fatigue and all that could eventually wear you out to the point where you're just kind of, you just really fall unconscious. Your body's done. So be very mindful of your behavior. Be aware of other people's behavior. Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on yourself. You really don't want it to really go that far. And a lot of this, if you're just simply dehydrated, you can avoid heat exhaustion just by replenishing your body with fluids and, of course, making sure you have plenty of salt in your system, which I'm going to get to my hydration mix. I think I may have mentioned it before on some episodes when it comes to stuff that I keep in my pack and little tips and tricks that I have on that. But I'm going to mention it again here soon. Just want to get through some of the symptoms of the heat exhaustion and then ways to treat it and all that. Nausea. Nausea is another common seen with heat exhaustion. And really it's because there's an electrolyte imbalance in your body. And so, of course, that also has to do with the salt depletion. And that's where... And that's kind of where, like, the hydration mix I was talking about can help, along with vomiting. Anyone who's experienced nausea knows it's often precedes the vomiting part. So it's really, nausea is the body's way to inform you that the brain, that something's not right in the system, okay? And this could lead to a person vomiting. And in the case of heat exhaustion, vomiting doesn't usually help because you're losing more fluids that way, and your body's already been depleted of salt, and so now you need to consume some type of fluids to replace and rebalance the electrolytes in your body. So sports drinks are great for that. Coconut water can help, and that really helps restore the balance. But my hydration mix, very easy. I'm going to make sure I give you the recipe before the break. Muscle cramps is another symptom. Really, with heat exhaustion, your muscles start cramping up. This tends to only occur if the heat exhaustion is relatively severe. So you know that it's getting bad when your muscles start cramping. Another thing that the salt depletion also causes when it comes to heat exhaustion is dizziness. And this isn't necessarily dangerous, but you should really sit down, especially if you're like out for a run or swimming in the water. You don't want to get dizzy and just kind of go unconscious. Now, one thing you should look out for when it comes to heat exhaustion is the rapid heartbeat. This is also associated with heat stroke. And if you're exercising or very active, it may be hard to tell if your heart is rapidly beating because of the activity that you're engaged in. So sit and rest to find out if your heart is beating quickly. Okay? So if you have a rapid heartbeat after you've been resting for a while and it's not slowing down after you stop whatever activity you're doing, you rest. And if this is happening with other symptoms, then it's really time to cool down to avoid going into the next phase of heat stroke. Now, of course, your internal body temperature may start changing, and sweating is an indicator that that could be happening. Of course, it's okay to sweat a little bit when it's hot out, but sweating excessively can really be an indicator that the internal body temperature is raising too high and that you really need to get out of the heat. Sweating too much will, of course, contribute to the dehydration, the loss of salt, and then could increase and aggravate the symptoms of heat exhaustion. So if you find yourself sweating a lot, again, keep drinking plenty of water, especially with electrolytes, sports drinks, and my hydration mix is great. I'm going to give you that recipe here in a little bit. As heat exhaustion progresses, sweating will eventually stop. So keep mind of that, because you've already depleted your body's reserve of water. And this is a very serious indicator, okay, that maybe now you're getting into a bigger problem. So aside from just drinking fluids, heat exhaustion, you need to replenish those electrolytes and the salt in your body. Now, I make little vacuum sealed packets, bundles of what I call hydration mix. And it's a very simple recipe that you add to 1 quart of water. Okay. Now, my water, it's an Aquamarine, one of those blue water bottles that the straw can attach into if you need to filter your water, or you can just remove the straw. If you have clean drinking water, you don't need to use the filter. That is about a 1 quart bottle, water bottle that I have, metal container. What's nice about it, I've even left that thing in the car for a week full of water, and the water doesn't really get hot. It's great. I love it. And it really doesn't get that cold either, unless you, of course, put ice in it and make it real cold. So, again, it keeps the water from getting... I never put ice in the water, which I'm going to get to a camping hack about my water cooler on that after the break. But 1 little packet of this hydration mix is perfect dumped into that container full of water. And any 1 quart bottle for the recipe and the ratio that I'm going to give you. Now, my recipe is it's a half teaspoon salt and 2 tablespoons of sugar to 1/4 liter, whatever, of water. Now, it's pretty much like drinking a sports drink, but without the color and the flavor. It tastes like a sugar water, and that's the right portion in order to start replenishing some of those electrolytes and the salt content in your body. Salt will dehydrate you, so you can't have too much salt. But your body does rely on salt, and that's why there's salt in it. And people think, like, why would you drink salt if you're dehydrated? You don't want to eat a lot of salt. You don't want to drink salt. You don't want salt. You can't rehydrate yourself on salt water. Well, yeah, the salt content is very high. But a low salt content would help re-regulate your body's salt content. The sugars will help rebalance the electrolytes and the mixture and all that. And you're drinking the fluids. And you don't drink it very fast either, little by little. Okay? So that 1 liter of water, you want to drink maybe over the course of, we'll say, 10, 15 minutes. You don't want to start pounding back water. You don't want to get bloated because you don't want to aggravate your digestive system if you're already especially nauseous or anything to then lead to vomiting. You don't want to vomit your water out. You want your body to process it and start absorbing it and start getting it into your system so that it gets to your organs and in your bloodstream. So, coming up after the break, I got some more tips, hacks, and camping trips and how to deal with the extreme heat, some little techniques that I use, and how I, without people really knowing it, how I make sure that people are really hydrated when they're camping or outdoors hanging out or just having a good time or even just partying. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You are listening to Are You Ready? When we come back after this break, I'm going to talk about heat stroke. And, of course, I have more, our prepping kitchen tip of the week. That's what I was looking for. And mistakes to avoid when prepping. All this coming up. Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also visit our home on the web. Just go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the program's link. If you missed the live show, you can listen to the show's archives on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, and many more, including our home on Spreaker. When a disaster happens, are you ready? Do you have the supplies you need to keep you and your family safe and survive? The Zombie Outpost store in Wilmington, Ohio, at Cedar Creek Flea Market, stocks quality gear you need to be ready for the next emergency or even a camping trip. Visit zombieoutpoststore.com for location and hours. Check out our assortment of essentials you need when the next disaster happens. Go to zombieoutpoststore.com. Get 10% off at checkout when you mention Are You Ready Radio. Be ready and be prepared.
In this digital society, making connections is quickly becoming a lost art form. Yet, if you are a small business owner, building your network is the only way you can get ahead. Can these skills be learned? You bet they can. Read Nose to Nose Networking. No nonsense, in-person networking tips from a master. Who's the master? Well, who better to teach networking and friend-building skills than a golden retriever? The author, Melanie Hope, takes the antics of Abigail and translates them into the human experience. Through Abby, you will learn how to set your intention, build a network, and get into and out of conversations with grace. If you love the Dog Abby segments on Counterculture-Wise Radio, you will love Nose to Nose Networking even more. Find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hard copy, Kindle, and Nook. Visit counterculturewise.com for direct links.
Greetings and salutations, Counterculture-Wise listeners. This is Maximilian von Riegelbieser inviting you and yours to listen to me and mine. Join me, my sisters Abby and Fritzy, and my weekly guests, my father Jim and Mumsy Melanie, for Counterculture-Wise.
Max, it's not your show!
And we're not your guests, Max. We're the hosts. You may want to rein it in a little bit, buddy.
Very well. Tune in every Sunday at 6 p.m. Pacific at counterculturewise.com for our amazing live variety show. You can even chat with us. If you ask me, though, it should be called Counterculture Max.
Counterculture Wise! Radio with Heart and Mind.
Got a spare tire around that waist? Is your muffin top over the top? Do you binge eat uncontrollably? We are the government and we are here to help you. Here at our free FEMA weight loss camp, we have numerous ways to help you shed those unsightly, unwanted pounds. FEMA, or Fatties Eating Mitigated, automatically has a communist-style weight loss czar that specializes in centralized weight loss planning and communal extended fasting programs to shed that fat away in no time. Skin and boned means extra toned is the motto. Just remember, there is no way you can do it on your own. We will forcefully assist you into compliance. Failure is not an option in this utopian wonderland. How fantastic. Typical workout regimes include digging ditches and restocking them with dirt, building railways and more. Get life skills while you get lean. How do you join? Simple. Recite the Constitution in a public commons, or violate the Patriot Act that includes simple misdemeanors. It's really that easy to get your own fenced-in slice of Americana. Stop being a fatty. The state is your daddy.
If you like what you are listening to, we appreciate your support. A small contribution from you, the listeners, can continue to help bring you such content and help keep things going here, even if it's just $1 a month. Keep in mind, though, in the spirit of prepping, we believe in redundancy, so it's better to have more than one, but every little bit helps pay the bills. Go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the Support the Show link. You can make a one-time or monthly contribution in any dollar amount. And again, thank you for your support and listening. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. And welcome back, everyone. You're listening to Are You Ready Radio. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. This wonderful Wednesday evening, or whenever you're listening to this on the replay. Thanks for sticking around. Our first half hour is over. We're talking about all the heat and some tips and tricks from my camping trip and what I do in order to make sure that everybody is safe when it comes to being in the extreme heat. And we were, before the break, talking about dehydration and heat exhaustion. And I'd like to cover heat stroke. You know, it's a condition caused by the body overheating. And it's usually because of prolonged exposure or physical exertion in high temperatures. The most serious form of heat injury is heat stroke. And this is kind of why it's, the big one. It can occur if your body temperature rises to above 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius. Or higher, of course. And a lot of times this will happen in the summer months. And heat stroke requires emergency treatment. Untreated heat stroke can quickly damage your brain, heart, kidneys, and muscles. And the damage worsens the longer treatment is delayed. So, it could increase your risk of serious complications or even death at that point. Now, look at some of the symptoms first. You have, of course, the high body temperature, which means your core body temperature is at that 104 degrees Fahrenheit or higher. Okay. And you could take the temperature. Your thermometer should, your first aid kit should have a thermometer. Also, another symptom is an altered mental state or behavior. So if a person's confused, if they're very agitated, maybe they're slurring their speech, they may be irritable. Seizures and coma can also occur as a result of heat stroke. So watch the person's behavior. You're also going to find an alteration in the sweating. Heat stroke is brought up by hot weather, and your skin will feel hot and dry to the touch. Okay? So your skin, if you're out there, strenuously exercising or, very active or something like that, and you're not sweating and your skin feels dry, that's a problem. You're not sweating. And then, of course, nausea and vomiting, which also comes with heat exhaustion. Your skin is also very flush, so it may turn red. And this is kind of hard. Is it sunburn? Is it, your body temperature increasing that's turning your skin red? Well, rapid breathing along with that. And it could become shallow. Also, a racing heart rate. Your pulse may be significantly high because of the heat stress. And it really places a burden on your heart to keep, just trying to keep your body cool and all this. And so you're going to have the rapid heartbeat. And, of course, your headache. Your head is going to start throbbing. So, because of the severity of heat stroke and the complications that could occur, yes, it's important that you may want to see a doctor of medical treatment, especially if you can't get some of the symptoms to go away. But you want to take immediate action, okay? So you want to immediately try to cool the person down or yourself. And you want to get into the shade or indoors. You want to remove any excess clothing. You want to cool yourself or whoever it is by any means available. If you're in the ocean, stay in the water. Find shade. If you can get into a cold tub of water, or even an ice bath. If you can spray yourself with a garden hose. If you're in the rain, fan yourself. Anything. Ice packs and wet towels. If you put them on your head, neck, armpits, groin area. All those are very effective ways to cool yourself down. And a way to kind of avoid some of this, though, is avoid prolonged exposure to the hot environment. And if you're in a hot environment, again, keep hydrating yourself. Take it easy. Avoid excessive strenuous activity. Also, wearing excess clothing. Sometimes I see people and they're like, it's 90 degrees outside and they're still walking around in a flannel shirt. If you wear too much clothing, it prevents the sweat from evaporating easily and cooling your body. So you're really doing yourself more harm. You think you're protecting yourself from the sun, but if you have too much clothing on in hot weather, that's going to do you more harm than good. Use sunblock. Don't get sunburned. But don't bundle up. Your body needs to sweat to cool itself down. Another thing is drinking alcohol. Alcohol, caffeine. I got a whole list of things. Hold on, let me get my notes here. Avoid caffeine. Let's see. Energy drinks, coffee, tea, soda, and alcohol. I know. Where's the fun in that? If you're out on the lake, on a boat, you're partying, or you're on the beach or something, you want a cooler full of these wonderful beverages for everybody to enjoy and have a lot of fun. Well, I got some tips for that, which I'm going to get to after the heat stroke segment here. Because, yes, I'm not just the barefoot prepper, I'm also the party prepper. And I have my own little tips and tricks to keep the fun going, make sure everybody's safe, including myself. So, yeah, I don't mind. I love a cooler full of cold beer. In fact, my cousin got me turned on to Twisted Half and Half. Last camp out last year, and it's. But yeah, I'm gonna share some of my tips and tricks as far as how do you just keep drinking and you're having a good time and you're not dehydrated. Well, I will get to that. But anyway, back to the heat stroke thing. Becoming dehydrated is another cause. Okay, now, where's I going with it? Oh yeah, okay, preventing it. Okay, preventing heat stroke. Of course, it goes back. Wear loose-fitting clothing, lightweight clothing. Don't bundle up. Don't wear excessive clothing or clothing that fits tightly. It won't allow your body to cool either. You want to protect yourself against sunburn. This is, if you use sunblock and all that instead of bundling up and wearing heavy clothing to avoid the sun and heat your body up, you're just going to get warmer and warmer. Use sunblock and, put a lot on. Apply sunblock. Gob it on you. And you want to reapply it almost every few hours. Or if you're swimming or sweating a lot, more often. Again, this will help keep your skin from burning, and you're going to be able to identify the symptoms versus sunburn. you don't want to hang out in parked cars and all that. Take it easy during the hottest parts of the day, and limit the time you spend working or exercising in the heat until you're kind of conditioned or used to it. People that are not really used to hot weather are especially susceptible to heat-related illness. And sometimes it could take several weeks for your body to adjust to hot weather if you're not used to it. So if you live in a cold climate all the time and you're vacationing and you're out in an amusement park all day, or you're out on the beach or the lake or whitewater rafting or something, or just camping, whatever that outdoor activity is in the extreme heat, if you're not used to it, you want to take some time to ease into it. You don't want to do 2 weeks out in the sun, canoe trip, and all this, down the Mississippi, if you're not used to, first of all, the water, if you can't swim and all that, but, you're going to be out in the sun for a long time. So, you also just want to be cautious if you're at increased risk. So if you're taking medications that may have side effects of raised body temperature, excessive thirst, dehydration, something that could increase your risk of heat-related problems, avoid the heat and act quickly if you notice symptoms, if they're, early on. Don't wait until it's too late. So how can you kind of in the field diagnose heat stroke? And first of all, thermometer. Of course, you want to take the body's temperature, and you want to make sure it's the core body temperature. So, mouth or rectal thermometer or anything like that would work best versus like a forehead thermometer, even though those are fairly accurate. Blood test, which you can't really check blood. But if there was a way to test your sodium or potassium in your blood, if you have a home test kit for blood, then you want to double check your sodium potassium levels if you're capable of it, and see what those levels are. A urine test is easy too. That you can just do visually. So if it's a lot darker, it'll be very dark if you have heat-related conditions. Very orange, very dark, almost brown. And that's a good way to see if your kidney functions are working. And that you can easily identify if your kidney functions aren't working right. Again, it could be darker because of dehydration and heat exhaustion, but extremely dark when it comes to the case of heat stroke. So you're going to be able to visually see that. Another thing that you could do is test your muscle functions to see if there's any damage, or make sure that your muscles are kind of functioning right. If they're not, then there could be potential damage to muscle tissue. If, we'll say, your urine's not looking right and it doesn't get any better, there's a chance that there could be damage to your kidneys or other organs. At that point, you're really going to need to get a blood work, a urinalysis done, and even x-rays to check damage to your internal organs. Now, when it comes to treatment, I was talking about, cold bath, ice packs, cold towels, all that. What you want to do is, when you're doing the treatment for heat stroke, the main thing is cooling the body down. Yes, you're going to need fluids too, because you're probably also dehydrated and went through the heat exhaustion phase. But the main thing with dealing with heat stroke is getting the body temperature cooled down to normal. At least get it below that 100-degree mark. So putting yourself in cold water is great. Using like evaporation cooling techniques, which it helps lower the body temperature. Misting the body, and then having a fan or something, or fanning yourself. The ice packs and cold blankets work. But what happens is that leads to shivering. It will make your body shiver, because now your body is thinking it needs to shake and shiver to stay warm, to increase your body temperature. Now, here's the tricky part with dealing with this. You may want some type of muscle relaxer. If the person's shivering, you got to be careful when giving them any kind of medication. So that's why sometimes this may require an actual medical professional to be able to deal with it. But based on your experience and your kit and your pharmacy and your prepper first aid kit, your prepper pharmacy, and what you have and what the person may normally take, A muscle relaxer may be a way to keep them from shivering in order to keep the body temperature going down, because if the body's shivering, it makes the treatment less effective, I guess you could say. And of course, as part of the treatment, yes, you do want to rehydrate. But again, don't drink sugary alcoholic beverages, energy drinks, coffees, teas, anything like that. You also, of course, like I said, don't want to make any of the drinks very cold, because that could cause the stomach cramps, and it makes your body want to heat that up, and it's going to generate more heat to make cold beverages more body temperature. So you're again, the treatment's not as effective if your fluid intake is cold. You want it to kind of be warmer, room temperature if possible. So now I've went through the 3 types of heat-related illnesses that you can have. Yes, dehydration is even an illness. According to Mayo Clinic and all that, and the research that I've done. And so how about some tips, tricks, hacks? I just went camping 10 days, 12 days actually. So how does this work? How do you make sure that not just you, but everybody else is having a great time, and everybody's drinking plenty of fluids and everything? Well, people ask me all the time. The big orange cooler that sits on the table, big gathering picnic table under the big tent, with the cups next to it, the rack of silverware, and the paper napkins, and the plates, and that orange cooler that gets filled up anytime it's almost empty. Well, why is there no ice in here? The water is warm. Well, there's also a cooler full of bottled water over there with ice in it. If you want cold water, it's over there. This orange container over here, I never put ice in. Now, next to it, there's also like Kool-Aid and lemonade mix, powdered drink mix. You just put a scoop in a cup if you want it, and you can flavor the water. If you want some ice, grab it from the cooler and throw it in there, but it doesn't go in the big orange water cooler. Well, why? Well, like I explained, if you're constantly hydrating your body with cold fluids, your body is getting warmer trying to heat those fluids up, and you're actually raising your body temperature trying to keep it cool. So that's why my big orange water cooler never has ice in it. I don't put any drink mix in it either. Sometimes people just can't agree on what they want. Some people like cherry strawberries. Some people don't like Kool-Aid. Some people like lemonade. Some people just want water. But having that big orange water cooler always full with plenty of cups stacked around it for anybody to grab water whenever they want, it's actually better for them to drink that way. And eventually people it's cooler than it really is outside. It's 90 degrees, and the water's really not that hot in there. So after a while, people don't mind it. It actually feels cool and refreshing, even though there's no ice in there. So people just start drinking that, especially when, we have to run down to the store, get more bottles of water, which I hate doing. And I'm not a big bottled water fan. I mean, the water from the tap's perfectly fine, no problem, especially when you're camping. You're not camping in a third world country here. So the tap water that we fill up with is fine. So, that's one way that, whether people realize it or not, they're keeping themselves hydrated in a better way, and it's helping their body temperature remain cooler because their body temperature is not heating up to warm the fluids that they're taking in. So they don't realize it or not, but this is what I'm doing to them. Now, another tip that I always use, another tactic or strategy, is when it's typically really hot, and especially if, a bunch of people have been out on the lake all day, or, they've been out swimming, or, they've been active, and they come back early, and it's just too hot to keep, to stay out there, blah, blah, blah. Well, people may start just sitting around, and you don't want boredom to sit in. Sometimes it's just too hot to do certain things. And I provide plenty of shady areas. I mean, there's multiple tents, canopies set up. We have a site that always has some nice shade from the trees around it in the site, and a lot of other stuff. But what happens is, especially if you have a lot of kids camping with you, they're going to eventually wear out. They're going to get tired, and they're going to get fatigued. And, of course, you want to keep them hydrated, but you don't want anybody to really get bored. So a lot of times people think that when they come up with activities for their big thing, it's like, we're going to horseback riding here, we're going to go kayaking there, we're going to go canoeing here, we're going to go swimming there, we're going to hang out on the beach here, we're going to go do this, and we're going to go out for dinner here. And, they plan major components of the trip that maybe they're going to do each day. But there's also a lot of time when you may be at camp, or sometimes it's just too hot to do that activity. So I have a ton of different activities, games, projects, and all kinds of things that can be done with very little effort, just really hanging out at camp while still having fun, making sure that everybody's entertained, that we don't hear the "I'm bored." You don't want the kids. One kid says, "I'm bored." Yeah, me too. Oh, I'm bored too. Let's do this. And everybody's tired. Everybody's trying to rest. Everybody's taking a break for their own well-being. So you don't want to hear the "I'm bored" and then there's nothing to do. In comes low-energy, fun entertainment. And there's a couple things that I like to do or play or have around and stuff. For when it's extremely hot, really sunny, too hot to do something, when people are just kind of taking a break, rehydrating, resting up, making sure that they're healthy and okay. And also if it's raining. And a whole day of activities may get canceled that you may have planned because of rain, thunderstorms, and all that. So always having plenty of overhead is great for shade, but also to stay dry. And the past camping trip I did, the one that I hosted for the family, it rained a couple days. One night, almost all night, almost all day, one day, maybe 2 days, I think, almost all day. So it really kind of puts a damper on things, especially when you have maybe a couple days that some people are coming up and then another couple days that other people are coming up. So everybody's in and out. So making sure that you have plenty of activities, such as like even board games, let's see. What else we did? Cards. Trivia. Trivia was fun. We didn't play it. We didn't need to, but of course we had trivia and like simple trivia. It's actually an app. And what I did was I erased the app from my phone and reloaded it because I was already playing it, for a couple of weeks and all that, just testing it out and, just getting used to it, how it works and all that, and figuring out how we can make it into like more of a group game. And so it was, just kind of feeds you the questions, multiple choice. And, it's like if it's at night, and you can read the question, first person with a flashlight on, they buzz in first. Or, just little things, knock two sticks together. That's your buzzer or something like that. Make your game show buzzer, and the first person to blink or chime in with a sound or something gets called on first. They get first shot at the question if they answer it right. If not, then we ask the question again. Someone else can buzz. So I kind of made it into a group game, even though it was just based on an app on a phone. Board games are great, and sometimes depending on the crowd, though, like if we were to try to do board games the last weekend at camp, when I think there was like maybe 12 people there, 14 people, that could get a little crazy because board games only have a certain amount of pieces, and even though you could say for 4 or more players or 2 or more players, a large group can easily outgrow a board game, and it just gets awkward. It's unmanageable, or there's not enough pieces, or, you can play in teams, and then you always have the, rivalry of who's on whose team, and no, you were on Mommy's team last year, on Daddy's team this time, blah, 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 no, I'm playing on Daddy's team, It turns into a bit of a challenge. You can get everybody happy when it comes to board games. But small group board games are great, and games that don't really have a lot of small little paper pieces, cards, stuff like that could easily like blow away. Like Monopoly, if it's windy and raining, it's kind of hard to keep track of your money. Everybody can put a rock on it, so, keep it under the board. But eventually, have your camping board games and your home board games. Have a set just for camping because, believe me, especially when it rains and sometimes board games come out, they could get pretty wet and then they dry and they look. It's not one that you want to take out when you have company at home. This is definitely the camping version of Monopoly. So, have a couple board games. There's a bin of cards, all kinds of stuff. What else? Oh, scavenger hunt. That you can kind of do like through the woods and the shade is nice. And I always, when I get to camp, I like to, kind of write out a couple things that's just kind of close by. The kids can break up into teams. Adults can do it too. And I also play a game called What Is It? And where I pick a random object at camp. And this is a great prepper survival challenge brain thinking game. And every day at camp in the morning, typically it was traditionally done this way, I would find a random object. I don't know, I'd be cooking and it's like a used match that I used for the stove or something. And then it comes over to the table when I serve the food. And I say, okay, today's game of what is it? And I put whatever the item is down, and I say, okay, what is it? Now, everybody has all day to come up with 3, 5, however many things they can for what that object could be besides what it really is. It's called the game of what is it. So anything from like a cork from a wine bottle. What is it? Well, it can be a bobber for fishing. It could, it can turn into a whistle. You can do, So the game of what is it, it's anything but what that item is, and you have to come up with as many things that you can use this item for in a prepping or survival situation. So we're coming up to a quick break. That's what that music means. When I get back, I'm going to share more of like the tips and stuff from camping and all that from my past week. Kind of my little debriefing here with you. And more great information, our prepping kitchen tip of the week, and some prepping mistakes and whatever else you come up with. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. You are listening to Are You Ready? I'll be right back.
Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also visit our home on the web. Just go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the program's link. If you missed the live show, you can listen to the show's archives on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Deezer, and many more, including our home on Spreaker.
When a disaster happens, are you ready? Do you have the supplies you need to keep you and your family safe and survive? The Zombie Outpost store in Wilmington, Ohio, at Caesar Creek Flea Market, stocks quality gear you need to be ready for the next emergency or even a camping trip. Visit zombieoutpoststore.com for location and hours. Check out our assortment of essentials you need when the next disaster happens. Go to zombieoutpoststore.com. Get 10% off at checkout when you mention Are You Ready Radio. Be ready and be prepared.
In this digital society, making connections is quickly becoming a lost art form. Yet, if you are a small business owner, building your network is the only way you can get ahead. Can these skills be learned? You bet they can. Read Nose to Nose Networking. No nonsense, in-person networking tips from a master. Who's the master? Well, who better to teach networking and friend-building skills than a golden retriever? The author, Melanie Hope, takes the antics of Abigail and translates them into the human experience. Through Abby, you will learn how to set your intention, build a network, and get into and out of conversations with grace. If you love the Dog Abby segments on Counterculture Wise Radio, you will love Nose to Nose Networking even more. Find it on Amazon and Barnes & Noble in hard copy, Kindle, and Nook. Visit counterculturewise.com for direct links.
Hey, how you doing? This is Magic Pierce inviting you and yours to listen to some good friends of mine that have a show too. Did you really think my daddy is the only one that just runs his mouth all the time and that's the only thing I listen to? No, it's not. I got a show I listen to on Sundays. Join host Max and his co-host, my hottie Fritzy, and of course my good friend Abby on Counterculture Wise, Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 Eastern. They have their own human guests, Melanie and Jim, each week. They don't meow a lot, but you get what they're saying. Now let me tell you, you have to go to counterculturewise.com. Use your paws to play with the mouse and scroll down to the on the air button on the right to hear their show. Just click on that. After that, watch them on Periscope like I do. Daddy gives me a little mouse to play with, and I give hearts the whole time. It's a great show. Check it out. Counterculturewise.com. If you don't tune in, I get cuckoos on you.
Thank you so much for that ringing endorsement, Magic. It warms the orange hearts of me and Abby and the gray heart of Fritzy to hear you say such amazing things about our show. I'm pretty sure that Mumsy and Father have pink hearts, so we will assume their hearts are warmed too.
Forget about it. I got you guys. Good peoples.
Got a spare tire around that waist? Is your muffin top over the top? Do you binge eat uncontrollably? We are the government, and we are here to help you. Here at our free FEMA weight loss camp, we have numerous ways to help you shed those unsightly, unwanted pounds. FEMA, or Fatties Eating Mitigated, automatically has a communist-style weight loss czar that specializes in centralized weight loss planning and communal extended fasting programs to shed that fat away in no time. Skin and boned means extra toned is the motto. Just remember, there is no way you can do it on your own. We will forcefully assist you into compliance. Failure is not an option in this utopian wonderland. How fantastic. Typical workout regimes include digging ditches and restocking them with dirt, building railways and more. Get life skills while you get lean. How do you join? Simple. Recite the Constitution in a public commons, or violate the Patriot Act that includes simple misdemeanors. It's really that easy to get your own fenced-in slice of Americana. Stop being a fatty. The state is your daddy.
If you like what you are listening to, we appreciate your support. A small contribution from you, the listeners, can continue to help bring you such content and help keep things going here, even if it's just $1 a month. Keep in mind, though, in the spirit of prepping, we believe in redundancy, so it's better to have more than one, but every little bit helps pay the bills. Go to nickpiercemedia.com and click on the Support the Show link. You can make a one-time or monthly contribution in any dollar amount. And again, thank you for your support and listening. You are listening to Are You Ready Radio with Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. All right, everyone, welcome back. You're listening to Are You Ready Radio. I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. Thanks for staying with me and riding along. It's a wonderful Wednesday evening if you're listening live, if you're listening to it on the replay, whenever you are listening to it. Thanks for tuning in. And we're talking about, of course, just different camping tips, tricks, hacks, and everything that I've been using, and some things that I did the past week when I was hosting the big family camp out. But also dehydration, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, dealing with that, identifying the symptoms, and how to deal with it. And right now, I want to continue on with some of my little tips, tricks, and hacks when it comes to camping. And as I mentioned in one of the segments earlier, not just the Barefoot Prepper, but also Nick Pierce, the Party Prepper. Yes, I love a cooler full of beverages, adult beverages, and people are just like, how can you be out in this heat and the sun all day and keep up with the best of us? Well, as active as I am, and I never really sit still, I have a couple little tips and tricks that I'm going to share with you on that one. You know, when it comes to the dehydration and heat exhaustion and all that, and avoiding heat stroke and avoiding, any heat-related illnesses, you're not supposed to drink alcohol. Well, I'm not going to pass up a party. And, if I'm able to, and, it's responsible, good time to do it. So, first of all, what I do is I can drink with the best of them. And especially when I'm out in the sun, the heat, camping, on the lake, beach, whatever it is, I could pack a full cooler up and walk off the beach just fine. Of course, I wouldn't drive anywhere, but, hey, we got to be responsible. So first what I do is I always, before I go out and start drinking, I always drink a lot of fluids, a lot of water, sometimes Gatorade and all that. And, or any sports drink, really. I didn't mean to plug any one particular brand. I'll typically have one of those, though. I also have my hydration mix, and like I said, I keep those in little individual packets ready to pour into a quart of water. I always have my water bottle nearby, and I always have plenty of water, and I refill it, and I drink it, and almost in between almost every drink that I take, I'm drinking a lot of water. And this way I can still have fun, I can still drink, and I enjoy the taste of it and all that, and we have a lot of fun, and it's a good time, and we get crazy, and next thing you know, everybody's okay. Well, at least I am anyway. Because I always drink a lot of water in between, and even during, while drinking a beer or Twisted or anything like that. So that's one thing I'm notorious for, is always drinking a lot of water. And that really helps keep your body functioning somewhat okay, but it really helps avoid being dehydrated. Now, of course, you still got to watch the sun. You still got to make sure that, you're okay in other ways, but it really helps combat the dehydration and the heat exhaustion. I'm not really very active either when I'm hanging out drinking on the beach or, at camp or anything like that. I'm just sitting around, hanging out, talking, and we'll easily empty a cooler. Now, speaking of the coolers, remember I said I have a lot of different tips, not just for me, but how I help make sure that other people are okay. Yes, people may not realize it, but I actually control the flow of alcohol and coolers. Okay. Now, of course, everybody's going to be disappointed now. They're going to be like, wait a minute, what's going on? The whole time we're sitting at camp, it's like, wait a minute. Well, the whole thing about being the camp master, the host, we'll say, is making sure that everybody has a good time and everybody's safe. And to make sure that people are not dehydrated and, everybody's okay and, and a bunch of other things on top of it. But one thing that I do is, yes, the first day when new guests arrive, yes, the coolers are fairly stocked and the drinks are cold and ready to hang out. Well, the second day and every day after, there's a new pattern that starts where we normally, or I would normally not, go on the beer run, okay, until after whatever the main activity is of the day. And there's no cold ice. It's just melted whatever's left in the cooler from the day before is still in there and sits there all day in the sun. Now, why? Well, first of all, there's normally not much left. But there always is. And this way, if we're going out on the lake, we're going kayaking, on a boat, hanging out on the beach or something like that, no one really wants to get a beverage because it's warm. And this way everybody's safe and everybody stays well hydrated and they're not drinking a lot of alcohol during the day, especially during the hottest parts of the day. But then after that, I'll go on the run. Get more ice, stock the coolers, and it's just a way to kind of, now, yes, there are days when it's an all-day party. But for the most part, the routine, by having that routine, controls that to make sure that everybody instead is drinking plenty of water during the day, especially in the sun and all the other stuff, and not the alcohol. So once we've had a big day out, or once we've done a big activity, then the ice gets put in the cooler with the restock, resupply, and all that. Now, there's always plenty of water, whether it's on ice or not, which I prefer not to be on ice. Remember, cold water is not necessarily good because your body's raising its temperature to warm it. So in a way, you're actually making heat exhaustion or, contributing to heat stroke by drinking a lot of very cold fluids when you look at the symptoms and causes of it. And, of course, treatment for it. So not that drinking cold water is going to give you heat stroke, but it doesn't help. So, the warmer water is always my choice anyway. So this way people are drinking an adequate supply of fluids that's non-alcoholic, that's also at a warmer temperature than it always being ice cold if they choose to drink bottled water, not the orange cooler that I was talking about, the orange water cooler. So that's just one of the many little tips and stuff and just the way that I kind of run the camp. Now, anybody's free to stock a cooler up as much as they want. I'm not saying never do it, and they don't. But, I don't tell anybody, no, we should wait until later and do all that. But it seems like just the lead and the rhythm and the pattern and the way it flows, just everybody just kind of goes along with it. It's like, oh, this is when we do that. Oh, that's when this happens. So in a way, you're kind of controlling, the fluids and all that, and making sure that everybody has adequate fresh water and fluids in their system before all that begins. And it's not always at the hottest times of the day, especially when you're going to be very active. So no one really realizes what I'm doing or not. I don't think anybody realizes it, but that's just the way it is, and it works. And I don't have to sit there telling people, oh, this is not a good idea now, we shouldn't do this. I'm not going to be the camp Nazi. I'm not going to sit there and dictate what everybody does. I'm not going to sit there and, say, don't do this, and we should do this, and this is when we do that, and blah, blah, blah. Everybody's free to do whatever they want, whenever. But it's just a way to kind of help, make sure that everybody is adequately hydrated. Oh, here's something I haven't done in a while. Burp, 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 burpy, burp, 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 burpy, burp, 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 burpy, burp, 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 burpy. Our prepping kitchen tip of the week. So, again, camping. So I just got done doing for a couple, about 10 days there, almost 2 weeks. And so I'm going to use my camping tips for you in this prepping kitchen tip of the week. First of all, I'm going to double shot it. I'm going to give you 2 tips because I haven't done one of these in a while. And I also didn't do a show for 2 weeks. So thank you for listening to the reruns and going back over and taking more notes and comparing your notes, seeing if there's anything that you missed. But so our prepping kitchen tip of the week. When I'm at camp, I may have mentioned the importance of, hygiene and handling meats and stuff like that. And what I do is I go through those vinyl gloves like crazy. There's no running water at camp. I mean, there could be. I got the solar shower and all that, and the solar shower is great for hand washing. You have nice warm water. You just fill it up in the beginning of the day, leave it out, and you have plenty of water to do dishes and wash hands with as you cook. But it is a bit of a pain. A lot of times things move fast. It can be very chaotic, especially when cooking for a large group of people. And why risk any contamination and, handling food, and stuff like that, especially raw food and all that? You don't have the most prime conditions like you normally have at home when camping. So I keep a box of those vinyl gloves, and believe me, by the end of a week, I go through a whole box. So especially like even just cutting garlic and onions and stuff like that, you're never going to get that smell off your hands just with some cold water from the faucet somewhere. And the only real supply of real running water is, we'll say, 150 yards or 100 yards over where the shower bathrooms are, or we'll say 50 yards, 70 yards away where the water faucet is that we use to fill up for drinking water. So those gloves are very handy from handling almost everything that you're dealing with, including service. So using those gloves really cut back and the chance of, your dirty camping hands that probably have sunblock and lotion and bug spray and stuff all over it, which don't spray bug spray in the kitchen area. I always go away from that. And I get on people for being too close to the kitchen tent and all that, the cooking tent, with bug spray and stuff. So that's one tip. Those vinyl latex or whatever gloves you want to use are perfect. Stock up on them and stack them high in your kitchen, and you'll be glad you did, because it really saves a lot of time. Just trying to move a little valve in the slow shower and trying to get the stuff washed there and go back over there. So that's one idea. Another kitchen tip I'm going to throw at you is when to cook. Now, of course, if you're cooking a lunch or anything like that, it's kind of hard to avoid cooking in the harshest of sunlights. But lunch, typically you want to, when you're planning your meals, you want it to be fairly easy. If it is just cooking, it's a very light cooking. But breakfast is probably your bigger meal. And most of the time we skip lunch, but I always have sandwich meats, cold cuts, breads, rolls, stuff like that laying around, as well as other quick heat and eat and grab and go things. But when to cook, and this really has to do with our whole avoiding heat exhaustion, dehydration, doing a lot of work, especially in a kitchen when it's 90 degrees out. Cooking for a large group, it could be a bit challenging because it gets hot. It's already hot. So plan on when you're going to cook, particularly your dinner. Breakfast should be done a lot earlier before the sun's really at its highest point. Make sure you set up your kitchen or any place you're cooking. If you're not cooking over a fire, maybe your grills or stoves or whatever you're using are set up safely underneath a canopy tent to give you shade. Now, the time of day to cook is another tip that I have for you on this one, because I want to cook dinner, because that's the largest meal, it's the biggest meal, could take the longest to make, depending on what you're making. That I like to cook when the sun is pretty much down below the tree line, but it's not dark. So you still have about 2-3 hours of daylight from the time the sun may not be beating on you to the time it really gets dark when the actual sun sets. And even after the sun sets, you still have plenty of daylight before it really starts to get dark. So you still have time for cleanup and all that, and you're not eating in the dark and all that. So cooking your meals later in the day really keeps you a lot cooler. It's a lot easier to function and work, and you're avoiding a lot of that excess heat that comes not just from the sun mostly, because you're going to have extra heat from the stoves, and even a fire if you're cooking on it. So that's this week's Prepping Kitchen Tips of the Week. So this year's family camp out that I hosted came with a set of some unique challenges. Leading up to camp now, for a while now, I've planned on having this trailer that I was going to outfit with all the camping stuff so it's ready to hook up, simply like bug out, gear and all that. Just a trailer that I back my truck up to, hook up, and everything is in there loaded, ready to go. The only thing you really have to stock in there is any of the perishable food, and it would have the refrigerator with a line that plugs in and all that. So a week before the camping trip, I bought the trailer. Now, there was a whole series of events that led to the trailer happening when it did and why. Originally, I was planning on a trailer. Some guy had a great deal on a camper. The camper deal didn't fall through. It was a too good to be true deal, and it turned out there were some things off with it, and I wouldn't be able to get it registered, and it was a bit shady, so I passed on the deal. But then the whole concept of a trailer came back around. I was talking to one of my regular customers at the store, and he said, after I turned down the guy on the trailer, on the camper, and I was on my way back to my store, and he said, "Oh, my brother's selling a trailer." So in 2 days, I bought a trailer. So I had the money for the camper. I just bought the trailer instead. And it was kind of my original plan to begin with. See, don't deviate off the plan. Stick to the plan. Okay? Very fundamental lesson in prepping. And I decided to deviate off the plan, and I should have just stayed with the plan. And when the trailer happened, the trailer happened. So it's a tow-behind enclosed trailer that I was going to outfit with cabinet shelves, all the gear, camping stuff, and everything would always be loaded in there, and it's also a nice prep kitchen, stuff like that and everything. Well, a week before the camp out, I bought my car in the shop, made sure everything was sounding ready for that, got the tow package installed and everything, got the trailer, and everything was set to go. Well, along with the trailer came some very unique challenges, because I didn't have everything binned and really sorted to be loaded into a trailer properly to tow and keep it organized and set it up. So a lot of that was kind of thrown in last minute, and a lot of preps were done, and everything else. So every year, the campsite is designed the same way. Well, this year we had a lot more people coming, and more unique challenges on that. And when I say unique challenges, not a bad way. It was a lot of fun. I like the curveballs. I like the challenges. I like those obstacles that get thrown up, and the challenge and the getting through it and working through it, like literally with no time, under pressure, to make sure that everything gets pulled off. Well, I realized that, some folks have never been to camp before. And folks that have, it's always been a certain way, but there's some new additions and some things that are happening differently with this trailer component and the way things are kind of stored, maneuvered, and all that. The days of the ratchet straps are now over when it comes to storing food to keep the raccoons and animals out of it, because now we just lock it in the trailer. But that also meant to make sure that by a certain time of day, the trailer always stayed closed, because there was a squirrel that ran through there one day, but that was no big deal. It came up the ramp and out the door. But you don't want raccoons or anything to get in there. They're very harmful. The squirrels could be a little, damaging. They could cause a lot of damage, but that wasn't the case with the squirrel. But raccoons. And so, always making a habit to keep the trailer closed, and, having, I thought ahead, and I said, well, what if the trailer's parked there? What if a bee or wasp, starts making a nest in there? What if we get ants? What if, So I had sprays and different things to help repel insects and combat ants if it happened. You never know what's going to spill or fall on the floor that's going to attract something. So I thought about it, and I said, okay, the first night anybody's there at camp, I like to take each group and just kind of give them a basic tour or rundown. So I realized that I had to do this because, yes, everybody knows where the tents are, and that's where the food is cooked, and that's where we sit and eat, and that's the fire over there. But, where are the drinks? Where's the food? Where are the snacks? Where's the munchies? Where's the toilet paper? The bins, when you say everything you need is in the bins over there, that's one thing, the way it used to be set up. Now it's, there's a trailer. We never really locked it unless no one was at camp. Then it always got locked. The key was always kept somewhere in case anybody needs to get into it. Fighting the rain and all that, it was great because it kept everything nice and dry, which also meant the first aid kit was always in there, not just sitting in a tent anymore. So we had a big cabin tent that was just for supplies, and now we had the trailer for supplies, and it's also more secure so that we can keep the firearms in there locked up and all that. But at the same time, there's another set of responsibilities that come along with it. So I wanted to make sure that everybody's clear on what's where, if they're looking for something, where to find it, and also the latches on the refrigerator. I put hasps on the refrigerator when I started bringing it to camp last year or the year before to keep the raccoons out of it and not have to worry about coolers, ice, and all that for the food all week. Well, now the refrigerator sits on the trailer, but I'm still using the latch system because sometimes you get in the trailer, it wobbles a little bit, and especially if it's not level, the door could pop open. Well, it's 90 degrees. The food's going to go bad pretty quick, no matter how high the refrigerator is, if you just leave the door cracked for even 10 minutes. So, there was a unique set of challenges there to make sure that it was, everything was okay. Especially with a lot of new and younger kids around in the campground that were coming for the first time this year. You wanted to make sure that the guests, their kids and all that, were able to get to things. They knew how to do it. They knew what to do to make sure that stuff stayed okay, and the raccoons stayed out of it, animals stayed out of the trailer, and the food would stay good, and all that. So what I started doing was, as each group or whatever, would come in, I just give them a little tour. This is the kitchen area. Make sure all the kids stay away from here. There's nothing they need over here. If they need any snacks or anything, it's over here in the trailer on the shelves. And you'll see a bunch of snacks. I kept them on one of the second to the bottom shelves. This way they can always get to it. It's easy to reach. They don't have to climb or stand on anything to get to the top shelf in there. And the refrigerator's over here. Here's the bread. Help yourselves to this. Anything that's labeled, because each meal was individually separated into vacuum bags and frozen. And then the night before, the day before, it was taken out to the frost overnight if needed, or defrosted that day in the refrigerator and all that. So anything that doesn't say dinner Wednesday or a day and meal on it, help yourselves. And it made it very easy for everybody. There was also, it was just really like a kind of like a brief orientation to get everybody familiar with what's going on. And of course, you set rules and certain expectations. And actually, this would be a great prepping mistake of the week before we run out of time. All right, so this applies not just to camping, but maybe in a survival situation or maybe a big power outage situation where you have a fire and you're relying on that maybe to cook on and heat and light and whatever else you need fire for, including warmth. Well, kind of going along with expectations and rules when it comes to camp, I'll give you a double shot of prepping mistakes, actually, because I thought of another one too. We have a general rule, especially for the kids. No one throws anything in the fire unless they are told to, especially the kids. So in other words, we don't want juice boxes, little drink pouches, wrappers, and stuff like that being thrown in the fire all the time. It's garbage. It makes a lot of smoke. It ruins the fire. And it's just a mess to clean up sometimes if stuff doesn't really burn when you really need the fire to cook. So if you set up a base camp or you're using a fire for heat, cooking, light, whatever it is, in the event of an emergency, you need a fire to use it for, practical fire, and not just for the enjoyment of just sitting around a fire and making s'mores. You want to make sure, even if you're making s'mores, you want to make sure that you don't have a trash fire. You don't want to put stuff in there that either doesn't burn, that emits a lot of, odors and different things, that could ruin the food or anything that you're doing in that you're using the fire for. Number one. So, and even adults, it's general rule is, whoever lights the fire takes care of the fire. Someone could throw a log in there, this, that, and the other, but whoever lit the fire, it's their fire. And but I don't mind people throw wood on there and they keep it burning, and that's great. Thanks for helping out. But in general, especially kids, it's important to establish that rule. And a lot of people don't really think of it, and you end up with a whole fire pit full of cigarette butts and foil and wrappers and stuff like that, cans, some stuff doesn't burn. Set aside a separate garbage area because that's where it goes, and it keeps it out of camp, and it also keeps animals away from, and it keeps your fire pit nice and clean too. So don't make that mistake, treating your fire as a trash fire. What was the other one I was thinking of? Big mistake when it comes to setting up camp, not having enough shade. Again, going on with our heat theme and avoiding heat-related illnesses. Always think, for $100, sometimes less, for $30, sometimes you can find these things on sale, those pop-up canopy tents. And just invest in one, because if you don't have enough shade from trees or whatever when you're camping, at least you can create your own shade and get a couple tarps for the walls. It also helps keep you dry so you're not sitting in your sleeping tent. A lot of times people make the mistake of thinking that, they're going to be in the woods all the time and everything's going to be fine. That's not always the case. So don't make those mistakes. Make sure you provide plenty of your own shade when going out camping, unless you know that you're sleeping in a heavily wooded area with a lot of overhang. But also, don't make a trash fire. That is my prepping mistakes of the week. So the bottom line really when it comes to camping or any survival prepping situation, any bug out situation, vacation, anything like that, is keeping yourself very safe and hydrated, and always making sure that things are organized and in order. And whether people realize it or not, I should say, you're really kind of controlling exactly the flow and everything. So you also need to be healthy, aware, and able to perform whatever needs to be done in the event, it shows. So you also have to keep yourself healthy as well and watch out for the health of other people, especially in this extreme heat. Well, I hope that I helped you seriously think, prepare, and answer the question, are you ready? I'm Nick Pierce, the Barefoot Prepper. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and the support you give the show. Our guests, the callers, our friends in chat, listeners, clients, customers, everybody at the store, everything. Find Are You Ready on Facebook and Instagram at Are You Ready Radio. You can also find us on the web at nickpiercemedia.com. Click on the program's link. Find us on your favorite podcast platforms and on our home on Spreaker. To contribute to the show, go to Nick Pierce Media and click on the Support the Show link. Are You Ready Radio is the official podcast of Zombie Outpost in Wilmington, Ohio, and is an NP Media Group production.